Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year to you, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, January 3rd. We will start by introducing you to your City Council.
Councilmember Starr.
Here.
Staley. Here. Erickson. Erpenbach.
Here.
Kylie.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Rolfing. Selberg.
Present.
Councilors, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it. In Sioux Falls, we lead our City Council meetings with an invocation. We're very, very pleased to have Pastor Alan Brummel back to lead us in that invocation tonight. Pastor Alan, thank you for being here. He is with Heritage Protestant Reformed Church here in Sioux Falls. What we'd like you to do is to stand, please, for the invocation, and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Alan.
Thank you. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the blessing and for the many good gifts we've received from thy hand. Thankful for another year, and as we begin it, we look to the one who is the creator of heaven and earth, the provider of every good and perfect gift, and we are thankful for the many ways in which we have so richly been blessed. Easy it is for us to take these things for granted. Teach us to be thankful, cause that we might walk and live in the awareness of that great thankfulness. And as we live in this grand country, we're thankful for it. We're thankful for this city, for the men and women given unto us to serve as protectors, as policemen, women, firemen, and women. Thankful for the city council, the mayor. We pray give them wisdom as they take up the day-to-day operation of the city and as they seek to be stewards of the finances and make rules that govern the well-being of the citizens. May they rule well, and may they rule according to the ways of thy wisdom. We pray, Lord, thy blessing upon us. We know that we are weak and sinful. Forgive us, and may we know forgiveness, and cause that we might live in such a way then that we show forth the praise of the one who has given unto us such a great and glorious gift for which we give thanks. Bless us now for Jesus' sake. Amen. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for being here.
Councilors, thank you. We'll now move to our consent agenda. Any changes, motions to that?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second. Staley.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve our consent agenda tonight, seconded by Councilor Staley. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Councilors, our regular agenda tonight, any changes to that?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve our regular agenda as well, seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Kylie. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Councilors, thank you. That has also passed 8-0. Welcome, folks. Good to have you here. Very, very cold night in Sioux Falls, but we are glad to have you here. This is a public input portion of the City Council meeting. Please feel free. You can come forward and really discuss anything that's of interest to you. The council would just like you to remind you a couple of things. Number one, just give us your name, please, so we can introduce you to the people of Sioux Falls. If you could keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, please, the council would appreciate that. As well as the council wants to remind you, if you could please address the City Council as a body, as a whole. They'd appreciate that as well. Anybody interested in addressing the council tonight? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is John Mathias, and I live in Sioux Falls. I'm a local native and past homeowner here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to share my thoughts and experiences as they relate to the recent South Dakota Second Judicial Court ruling on a lawsuit between two homeowners in the McKinnon Park area. I'm gratified that Judge John Peckus found in favor of the plaintiffs in this case. The ruling, however, focused national and even international attention on Sioux Falls. At a time when one or more city leaders have lamented a recent municipal decision on how poorly it looks for those who might consider moving to Sioux Falls, I'm inclined to point out, regrettably, how poorly this litigation reflects on our city administration. In a world where so little is under the control of the average citizen, our homes are our sanctuary. People who take pride in the appearance and upkeep of their residences are valuable assets to any town. And homeowners have a reasonable expectation that City Hall will protect their property from unscrupulous neighbors who would interfere with the peaceful enjoyment of their sanctuary and/or devalue neighboring properties through negligence. Were building codes not created with these goals of protecting existing neighborhood character, we'd likely see, for example, mobile homes sprinkled throughout single-family permanent home neighborhoods. Homeowners rely on their municipalities to prevent such detrimental changes from happening. In this case, the city's legal counsel argued at one point that it would be an onerous burden for city inspectors to make repeated site visits at the various stages of the construction permit process. However, I hope this unpleasant and lengthy litigation illustrates that common sense, eyes on the ball practices are more important where residential regulatory matters are concerned. The issues challenged in this case seem quite self-evident. Indeed, Judge Peckus repeatedly writes, "The court finds that a reasonable fact finder could conclude on issues supporting his decision." That implies it didn't take a PhD in engineering or legal scholar to conclude that allowing this huge new home to be built was wrong. Had one or more officials from planning and building services been empowered and/or required to actually put boots on the ground in the McKinnon Park neighborhood, voicing a common sense question of, hey, what's wrong with this picture? Well, it might have prevented this entire debacle. In his ruling, Judge Peckus writes, "It is evidence that the city owes a duty to the McDowells, just like it owes a duty to anyone who would be negatively affected by the issuance of a building permit that would violate zoning and construction regulations. Although the exact harm may not be foreseeable, the harm that resulted here could be seen as a harm that is within the class of reasonably foreseeable hazards that are to be prevented," end quote. I'd like to conclude with two more related issues. It's apparent that an existing homeowner faced with a situation like this, but lacking the financial means to mount a costly legal action, would simply lose. Failed by City Hall and victimized by another property owner, he and arguably an entire neighborhood would be permanently harmed without any redress. That's a travesty, and it's not good government. Last but not least, the cost of residential property disputes like this between neighbors goes far beyond time and expense. I have the personal experience of a so-called new McMansion consume the home site next to my 1920-era Mission Craftsman-style bungalow in Los Angeles. I know firsthand how the emotional turmoil and strain of legal issues which threaten your residential sanctuary can wreak havoc on the interpersonal relationships with the families involved. This is a cost that is never recovered through injunctive relief or monetary damages. I implore our city leaders to please consider the far-reaching implications of municipal administrative failures like this as an important quality of life issue, and take steps to ensure that this history does not repeat itself. Thank you.
Ms. Mathias, thank you as well. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome. David, go right ahead, sir.
Greetings to the city council and the mayor, and greetings to the audience. I'm David Zokaitis, and you know, it's the new year, and I wanted to do something different, so I'm saying Happy New Year. I mean, that's not my normal discourse, but it's the new year, and we should all be happy because it's the new year. Christmas, as we all know, is a time of birth and a time of renewal. It's also happens to be the solstice, you know, a time of hoping for new light to come upon the earth. And it's a season of camaraderie and good cheer and peace, love, and joy. And, you know, food really helps the world go around. And my daughter loves to cook, so I talked her into making us 100 cookies. So really, that's what we did. And they're all like vegan chocolate chip. I bet you've never heard of such a thing. They're whole grain. The gluten-free she was hoping for, but never got to. Yeah, chocolate chip whole wheat cookies. There's a box there of 100 cookies, and I hope we all enjoy Christmas and the New Year. And of course, I have to close with a picture. A very short talk tonight. This happens to be, I took it on the ski lift at Great Bear. And there's beauty upon the earth, and there's plenty of it right here, so we should have a good evening and enjoy Christmas a little bit longer. It's not quite gone. And have a Happy New Year.
Thank you, David. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Councilor.
I am Kermit Staggers, citizen of Sioux Falls. Happy 2017. This is going to be a great year, I think, here for the City Council here in Sioux Falls. Hopefully this is going to be a good year for the council to continue to assert its authority that it has in accordance with the charter. Also, let me mention that a lot of this authority that can be asserted is in regard to the different boards that the city has. For example, the Parks Board or the RIMSA Board. And the most important thing about those two particular examples is trying to have more openness to allow their proceedings to be broadcast so that, you know, citizens don't have to go to where the meeting is, but they can actually watch it on TV. But having mentioned those few words, once again, let me say, hey, have a nice 2017 and all the best. Bye.
Councilor Staggers, thank you.
Bruce Danielson, Sioux Falls. On Christmas Eve, I was out passing out a few gifts, and I came across a little bit of a mess over on Cliff Avenue, and I stopped and talked to some of the workers that were there, and I took a couple pictures that I don't know if you people got a chance to go see any of this, but they were working very hard, and I just wanted to publicly tell the administration and especially the workers who are out there working that we appreciated them being out there on a Christmas Eve when, even if it was reasonably nice weather, it was a hellacious water break, and it created a lot of strife in those neighborhoods while it was happening. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then over since we last met, Christmas Day, there was a tremendous windstorm that came with some really fun weather. And in the morning, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, actually, my house shook. I'm clear out on the west side of town, and my house shook and actually woke me up, and it was a blast of wind that came through that ended up causing a little bit of an issue over at the event center. And so I went over there and took some pictures of it, and then I was working to try and figure out a way to see, because as you all know, I'm pretty interested in seeing how much wind it takes to actually blow the siding off the place. And I was able to take these pictures and encourage the city to go over and actually fix it before the windstorm picked up the other day again. And as I was studying the images, I realized a lot of that was put up from the way it looks with what are called tapcons. And these are screws for actually usually anchoring lighter gauge material, the steel or wood, into the concrete. And it appeared that they had been using tapcons to hold that, and when that blast of wind came about, it appears to have caught underneath that soffit, pushed it up and dropped it down. Well, in that whole scenario, tapcons aren't going to hold much. And it was a little disconcerting to actually see chunks of the event center hanging there ready to drop down into the HVAC system, and that would have pretty much shut down the place for a while. And then, of course, I keep wandering by the event center, and I see the rust is increasing, the ooze that's coming out from under the siding is increasing all over the building, and kind of makes you wonder how much water in all of that rain we got actually ended up in the walls, because you could sure see the ice around the building after it. So you know that the siding caught a lot of moisture, and we know that there's no water barrier to stop the water from getting into the walls. So there's a vapor barrier, but not a water barrier. And that soffit shows it. Thank you.
Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. 498 days until we have a new mayor. I've been hearing on the streets that candidates are coming forward for mayor. The one that owns the Harley Davidson shop, Kenny Anderson, and Pat Costello. As we go into the new year of 2018, we really need to get a mayor that it has control over crime. I don't know if Greg Jameson is coming out to run for mayor, but I support Greg Jameson 100%. I have an appointment with a federal agent tomorrow at 1 p.m. to clean up Duluth Avenue. What's going on over there is unreal. Bullet holes in the windows of shops because they're drug dealing. Taking food stamps, buying it off the streets, putting it in these little buildings at Legacy, right there by Mercado's, and selling dope and doing hair there. So cosmetology got involved and the state got involved, and we're going to clean this up. Again, if you would look back on all of the videos, if Greg Jameson decides to run for mayor, this is the best candidate that we need here. Greg Jameson has been saying forever and a day about this crime here. I had to go to a federal agent tomorrow and pass up the city's heads to get this cleaned up. It is beyond belief. We have security that is on the 100 block of Duluth, and I asked them, are you human prostitute trained? Yes, I'm an ex-Marine. Why are we seeing all this out here? And I have videos of it. But we should, as a city, if the mayor would let the chief of police and the police department do their job, and City Hall would not get involved of it, we need to clean up the streets here. Mayor, I'm telling you what, when I went on Duluth Avenue here, I mean, we have prison gangs. We had to take down a house that a landlord put a guy in that he just got off of parole for selling cocaine, and he got busted 2 weeks ago and sent back to prison. I'm not getting it. I went to Lucky's Casino, and I went to G&H Property, Destiny Properties. They're all saying, oh, it's the location, it's this, it's that, it's the other. These landlords are putting people that have criminal activity in these houses, and we have 6 drug houses, and 2 of them is down, so we have 4 more drug houses to go. So, Mayor, I'm saying this, that the citizens need, when election time comes, to seriously look at these candidates and get a strong candidate to run for mayor to get the crime off the streets here. Thank you, and you have a good day.
Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll now move to item 13.
Item 13 is new 2016-17 package malt beverage license for Shopko Stores Operating Company, LLC, Shopko number 101, 4501 East Arrowhead Parkway, CUP not required. Item 14 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Sertoma Butterfly House in Marine Cove, 4320 South Oxbow Avenue for a chamber mixer on February 21st, 2017. Item 15 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Avera McKinnon Foundation to be operated at Avera Behavioral Health, 4400 West 69th Street for a fundraiser on February 4th, 2017. Item 16 is a special one-day off-sale package wine license for Junior League of Sioux Falls to be operated at 4510 West 61st Street North for a fundraiser on February 10th, 2017. Item 17 is a special one-day liquor license for Avera McKinnon Foundation to be operated at Avera Prairie Center, 1000 East 23rd Street for the Big Grape fundraiser on April 7th, 2017.
David?
Thank you, Mayor. Item 13 is a new 2016-2017 packaged malt beverage liquor license, or beverage license, excuse me, for Shopko Stores Operating Company LLC at 4501 East Arrowhead Parkway. And items 14, 15, 16, and 17 are all special one-day permits.
Thank you, David.
Move approval, Mayor.
Thanks, Council Chair. Second. Thank you, Council Vice Chair. Appreciate that. Yes, Council Starr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is someone from the applicant from Shopko available to address us tonight with some questions?
Is there anybody here with the Shopko Stores? Councilor Starr, looks like no.
I'd like to defer that item until they can come before us. I have some questions about it's a major change in their business.
That dies for lack, or Councilor, that dies for lack of a second. Any other?
If I could just
Yes,
comment
Councilor.
on that. In our Friday meeting, we were told that that's basically the, they wanted to match what they've got on 41st Street, and so that's the reason for the lesson, or for the license over there, as I remember the conversation. And so I don't see a big change in a modus operandi of the Shopko Stores to do this. Just to give you a little information on that.
Councilor Buck?
You know, and I don't have information like that, but I would just compare them to their competitors in terms of Target and, you know, Hy-Vee and Lewis and all of those stores. This, you know, this is just a matter of course for them. It's not anything unusual at this point.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Council, that is passed 8-0. Item 18, please.
Item 18 is deferred from the City Council meetings on November 1st, 2016 and December 6, 2016, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1200 East 3rd Street from the S1 General Institutional District to the C3 Commercial Community District, petition number 4397, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends denial 4-3.
Good evening, Jason.
Jason Bieber representing Planning and Building Services. The applicant and staff for this specific application are requesting that the City Council remand this back to the Planning Commission at their February 1st meeting. We have worked with the applicant quite a bit on this one, and we believe we have come up with a kind of a parking solution for this particular use. And they will then be changing their request from the C3 to the C2 commercial district.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I would make
Councilor.
a motion to remand this back to the Planning Commission.
Second, Erpenbach.
There's been a motion by Council Chair Rolfing to remand this item back to the Planning Commission, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Jason gave the explanation. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item number 19.
Item 19 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1900 North Bonson Avenue from the AG Agricultural District to the I2 Heavy Industrial District, petition number 5765, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
The applicant and owner here is Wes Eiding with Twin City Concrete. It's located at the northeast corner of Rice and Bonson Avenue on a currently vacant piece of property. It's roughly 5.2 acres in size. TCC Materials is looking at constructing in a second facility. What they do is crush concrete, package it, and then sell it on this particular lot. So,
Jason, thank you, folks. This is a second reading. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Very good.
Move approval, Rolfing.
Council Chair, thank you.
Second, Erbenbach.
Thank you, Councilor Urbanbach, for the second. I appreciate that. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 20.
Item 20 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 2600 West 57th Street from the CN Conservation District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar and LW Live Work Districts, petition number 5798, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
the applicant here is Norm Drake, and the owner is Houston Haugo. It's located just west of the underpass of 229 on 57th Street. It's roughly 11.48 acres in size. The applicant is proposing to construct a development with multifamily, office, and commercial uses. This is a piece of property that once the levee project was completed, came out of the special flood hazard area and is now developable. So they're looking at moving forward. So,
Jason, thank you. Folks, another second reading. Did anybody want to speak about this item? Very good. Councilors?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Councilor Erickson's been a motion to approve that. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Staley. Thank you. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 21.
Item 21 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the southwest corner of East 41st Street and South Veterans Parkway from the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar and REC Recreational Districts to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar and REC Recreational Districts. Petition number 5878, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
the applicant and owner here are the City of Sioux Falls and also Harrisburg Crossing LLC. It's located just north of Harmondale Park on 41st and Veterans Parkway. When this property was platted, a portion of the Harrisburg...
Jason, David, could you put your cookies down, please, and have a seat? Appreciate it.
When this property was platted, sorry.
You ready, David? Thank you, sir. Jason, go ahead.
When this property was platted, a portion of the property owned by Harrisburg LLC, it was zoned C end, and a portion that's owned by the city, that's our park and rec shop for Harmondale Park, was zoned C2 commercial. So we're just correcting that and changing those two around. So.
Jason, thank you. Folks, a second reading again. Anybody want to talk about this particular item? Thank you. Councilors?
Move to approve, Erbenbach.
And I'll second.
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to approve item 21, seconded by Councilor Chair Rolfing. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 22, please.
Item 22 is an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 3201 South Nikund Court from the CN Conservation District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District. Petition number 5957, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
The applicant here is the City of Sioux Falls Planning Office. The owners are Don and Connie Prebel. It's located just north of 41st Street on Nickand Court. When this property was originally platted, it was part of a land swap with the city where they gave us the area shown in number 1, and then we gave the developer the area shown in number 2 for our drainage area. That property was never zoned out of the conservation district. The homeowner is looking at constructing a small little residential storage shed on the property. Well, they can't do that in the conservation district, so we are remedying that little section of their property. Jason,
thank you. Folks, anybody want to talk about this particular item? Councilors?
Move to approve Nitzert.
Second. Erpenbach.
Councilor Neitzert's made a motion to approve this particular item. Thank you. And seconded by Councilor Erpenbach, I think. Is that right? Thank you. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Councilors, that is passed 8-0. Item 23.
Item 23 is an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 601 North Duluth Avenue from the RT1 Single Family Residential Traditional District to the LW Live Work District, petition number 5963, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
The applicant here is Matt Eltoff. The owner is the Catholic Diocese. This property is located just north of the Catholic Church on Duluth Avenue. The property previously contained a dilapidated home that the Catholic Diocese purchased and have raised. It's roughly 0.23 acres in size. They are looking at moving an existing three-stall garage onto that lot to use for their snow blowers, their lawnmowers, and things for the church property. And then they're also looking for possibly a future community gardens on the east side of this property.
Jason, thank you. Did anybody want to speak about this particular item? Councilors?
Move to approve.
Second. Star.
Councilor Selberg has made a motion to approve this item. Councilor Starr has seconded that. Thank you. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, item 24, please.
Item 24 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1001 South Sertoma Avenue from the O Office District to the LW Live Work District, petition number 5997, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
The applicant here is an owner is Chuck Point with Ronning Companies. This is located just west of Sertoma Avenue and south of Stony Creek Street. It's roughly 3.4 acres in size. It's currently a vacant piece of property. The applicant is looking to rezone it from office to live work, and he's looking at constructing some 8-unit townhomes around the outside of the property, then a possible office in the center portion of the lot.
Jason, thank you. Another second reading, folks. Anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Okay, councilors. Yes, Council
Can
Chair.
you move that back, Jason, to the picture of the surrounding area? One more there. What is on the right there? Is that?
That's an electrical substation to the east of Sertoma Avenue. Then there's a church to the south of that.
A church on the south. Okay.
Yep.
That's all I want to know.
Thank you.
Went through it quickly. I'll move approval.
Thank you, Council Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Staley. Appreciate that. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 25, please.
Item 25 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 4801 and 4901 East Grant Street from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District, petition number 5829, 2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-1.
The applicant here is Jeff DeYoung. The owner is Paul DeYoung. This is property that's located just east of Sertoma Avenue and north of Arrowhead Parkway. It's roughly 1.9 acres in size. The purpose of this specific rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing an additional 8 buildings for commercial storage units. This will require a buffer yard along that north side that's adjacent to the existing single-family houses to the north across the street there, Grant Street, excuse me. This is a updated landscape plan that the applicant has provided, kind of indicating a number of things. The existing green triangles are trees that are existing that will stay as part of this rezoning and this development. They will stay in the buffer yard. The applicant is also indicating the blue triangles as evergreen trees from other portions of the lot where the buildings will go that will be moved into that buffer yard. They will be anywhere between 6 feet and 13 feet, depending on which ones he moves where. And then there's also those existing deciduous shade trees along East Grant Street. We did have, staff did meet with the DeYoungs and the Buckmillers on Friday at 11 a.m. down at City Hall. It was a pretty good discussion. It was very cordial. I think both sides stated their concerns. Some of the major concerns that I took from the Buckmillers is they're worried about the transition from these specific storage units to the existing single-family residential uses to the north. Some of the things that we discussed and the applicant agreed to provide would be a 6-foot residential privacy fence. I believe he can discuss which one he's looking at providing, but it wouldn't be a chain link with slats at all. That was important to the Buckmillers. They also agreed on those north buildings to provide residential looking shingles to kind of have them fit in a little bit better with the existing residential uses to the north. And then this landscape and buffer plan is something that he is looking at constructing similar to the way that it looks here. I think another one of their concerns by the Buckmillers was also the enforcement of these concessions that the applicant has made. I spoke with the applicant this morning and just discussed with him, and he is willing to go to the Planning Commission to actually have an alternative site plan that will show this landscape plan approved by them, making whatever he's showing here binding, and then he will have to do that with the fence when he comes in for building permit construction, and hopefully that will ease some of the concerns that the Buckmillers have with this specific project. Just kind of wanted to show a little bit of this area of Arrowhead Parkway. As you can see, it's predominantly commercial next to Arrowhead Parkway, and this will be fill in the existing area with commercial uses. There's commercial to the west, vacant piece of office to the east, and then also commercial to the south.
Jason, thank you. Folks, second reading. Did anybody want to engage the council on this topic? Folks, welcome.
My name is Jeff DeYoung. I'm the petitioner here. I guess if there's any questions, I'm more than willing to help answer them. And I'm trying to make concessions with the neighbors to try and help everything flow through freely that way.
Thank you, Jeff. If you'll just hang tight, we'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Kleinschmidt. I'm here on behalf of my grandma, Dolores Benz, who is unable to be here tonight. She lives at 4900 East Grant Street. I am not in favor of the RD1 residential to C2 commercial. These storage units would be right across the street from our house. The storage units would greatly depreciate our property value and increase snow drifting on Grant Street. My husband has provided the plow truck for snow removal over the past decade, a service which should be provided by the city. The proposed barrier is inadequate, and the current trees and spacing between our property and the current storage units need to remain. We believe improvements to our neighborhood are needed instead. Please vote no to the rezone of 5829-2016 and leave 4801 and 4901 East Grant Street as residential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kleinschmidt. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
My name is Matt Kleinschmidt. I'm here to speak on behalf of my wife and I's grandfather, Virgil Benz, who lives at 4900 East Grant Street. They're out of town tonight and not able to make it to tonight's meeting. At our first zoning commission meeting, we had 2 points. There's 2 points that were brought up that I'd like to make that were made before their original vote, and I'd like to just touch on those briefly. The first point being that a similar rezoning issue had come up in the past and was approved, so we don't see why this is any different. To that point, I would like to say, just because something was done in the past does not mean it was necessarily the correct decision, or for all I know, it may not have had the same reaction from the surrounding neighbors as this one does here tonight. So that being said, this is a different issue and different circumstances, and I want to urge you to not just lump this together with the past decision. 4801 and 4901 are currently zoned for RD1 or townhomes. A statement was also made stating that a storage unit would essentially be the same as an accessory garage on a townhome. To that statement, I would like to say that the storage units that were built in the aforementioned rezoning issue were built with residential grade materials, LP siding, and asphalt shingles, similar to what you would find on your homes. They looked like a typical residential style garage. The pole barn style storage units that we are talking about here are made of sheet metal siding and metal roofs that do not fit in with the look of the neighborhood or the surrounding neighborhood area. They're a type of building you would see in a commercial or industrial area. The buffer zone that was required in these plots of land, if these plots of land were to be rezoned, is 30 feet. 30 feet is roughly the distance from your garage door on your house to the street you live on. Think about that. These storage units, if built, will not be any farther away from East Grand Street than your garage is from the street that you live on. The length of your driveways. I ask each one of you, would you want a metal storage unit built that close to your home? I have a few pictures I'd like to show real quickly. This is the existing layout of the property. I copied the existing units and brought them down to show you what they would look like if these new units would be built. Flip it around. It's upside down. As you can see, these new units would be extremely close to East Grand Street. Like I said, essentially the same distance from your garage to the street. This is from a side view to show you how close these would be to the East Grand Street. I just want to show you guys how close these would be and why there needs to be, if this was to be rezoned, why there needs to be a substantial blockage as far as the fence and the appropriate building materials to construct these units if this was to be rezoned. Secondly, you must take into account the major difference between townhomes and storage units. Townhomes will bring neighbors into the community, which is the reason that we have built our home here and the reason that Buck Millers gave up the legal address, so that they are be a part of the development similar to the developments to the north of these properties, which are only going to continue to grow. By building more storage units closer to the single-family properties without the necessary transition from commercial to townhomes to residential, you will essentially be ending further development in our neighborhood. If townhomes were constructed in this area with its current zoning, they would need access to East Grant Street, therefore increasing the likelihood that it would one day get paved. These storage units will not need access to East Grant Street, which means that there is a lesser chance of this street getting paved, as well as a lesser chance of the plots of land to the east will ever get developed, as there will not be a second means of access to any possible developments to the east via East Grant Street. So as we're looking at this picture from right now, we're looking up top is south. So off to the left of the picture is east. All that land over there cannot be developed with apartments or anything like that because of there's not a second access via East Grant Street since it does not go through. I don't want to stand up here in front of you and talk tonight and going down to continue to go down a rabbit hole of possible outcomes with rezoning this to C2. However, if this is rezoned to C2 and this project ends up falling through and this property could possibly be resold and just about anything could be built in its place, gas stations, even McDonald's for that matter. I urge you to understand there's a lot more at stake than rezoning some land and a couple of buildings. You may very well be deciding on the future of this area of your city, the City of Sioux Falls. Please vote no on 5829 2016 rezone. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Folks, anybody else? Very good. Welcome.
Evening. Lynette Buckmiller. We'd like to thank all the council members who supported us with their no vote on December 20th. We appreciate you and hope to have your continued support this evening. We would especially like to show our gratitude. Sorry. Can I have someone else finish this for me? No, wait. No, I can do it. To those who took the time out of their busy schedule to drive by and look at the situation we're opposing. Also for those who have spent time on the phone with us. We are hoping and praying to sway enough no votes in our favor from turning our residential area into a storage shed area. We are trying to protect our dream home. Our dream home is not luxurious or even elaborate. It's a modest home, plain and simple like us. We've worked long and hard to achieve our goal of moving out of our starter home. We've already taken enough property value hits, and now it's under consideration for rezoning RD1 to C2, allowing unappealing storage pole buildings to invade our property. The more we are learning about the storage shed development, the scarier the situation gets. A great concern for us is there are no conditions on this C2 rezone. A 5 to 10% property value for some of you may seem minimal, but up to $22,000 to us is a significant loss. We're not the bad guys here. We're only trying to protect our home, our neighborhood, and the biggest investment in our life. The city has strict restrictions on constructing storage within city limits. It should be just as hard to rezone residential to C2 commercial to construct unappealing pool building storage units in a residential neighborhood. Please vote no on the 5829 2016 rezone from RD1 residential to C2 commercial this evening. Commercial will change the character of our neighborhood and open Pandora's box. We want this to remain a residential area with twin homes or duplexes, leaving a possibility of a future road. We're good people. We care about our neighborhood. We care about our home. We thought 7 houses were going to be constructed to the north of our home. These houses would have been a vast improvement to our neighborhood. Storage units, on the other hand, are for industrial areas, not residential. These units will decrease the value of our home, and potential resale should be considered. We still are opposed, but in the event that it passes, it needs to be remanded for conditions to be added with no guarantees. The applicant can do whatever he wants to do. A 10-year project is, who knows what can happen within 10 years. A lawsuit for a breach of implied contract against the developer to the north would have cost us $30,000 in attorney's fees. Please don't allow what happened to the north happen again to the south. Please vote no on this rezone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buckmiller. Folks, anybody else? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jesse Buckmiller. I live at 200 South LaSalle Avenue. I think you got this email. I'm going to read it out. I just got a comment after it. First off, I would like to state that we're against this rezone RD1 to C2 for storage units. We met with Jason Bieber and the DeYoungs on December 30th at City Hall and discussed the specifics of this proposed divide and buffer. And Jason pretty much covered what we talked about. We discussed the type of fence being a vinyl 6 foot to 8 foot, and the height and the placement of the trees, the type of the roof, the siding, and at least the north face of the north buildings. We asked for asphalt, but they came back with granulated steel that looks like shingles and permanent siding. Throughout the discussion, we learned the timeline on this development, that being 10 years. In this 10-year timeline, they would like to start with the larger buildings first, 1 building per year at a time. This is what they were saying. We understood before the ground is broke, the buffer or divide must be in place. We feel the 4 north buildings with the agreeable siding, roof, fence, and the trees are all part of the divide. In a 10-year timeline, no bond or no assurances, only promises. We think there are too many variables, such as a failing economy, that the project might be at risk of coming to a halt. Starting with the larger buildings might lead to an incomplete divide and project. Therefore, we believe the 4 north buildings are an increment part of this divide and development. Jeff had stated at the planning meeting that the 4 north buildings only open to the south, and that making them a divide themselves, which is agreeable. Also, in a 10-year plan, laws can change, such as primary access, and who should pay for the roads. We still feel the road should be part of the development. For this pole building style of storage units, which are similar to the ones on 69th and Sundowner, twin homes and duplexes are still the best divide. We want this to remain a residential area, leaving the possibility of a future road. We are still opposed to this rezone, but if it is approved, we would want bonding conditions, and I believe Jason touched on that, in writing and not a 10-year verbal agreement. They say they don't want to finance this project and they want to pay for it as they go, building at a time. We got involved with a developer who started the project once, found out the cost, walked away, and that didn't turn out so good for us. If you rezoned a C2 from RD1, and it will always be C2, which brings up another variable. If they were to sell the land, it's going to be sold as C2. So we believe creating the divide with the 4 north building is an important issue to consider. I guess that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Buckmiller.
I got a
Appreciate it.
picture, but I think you know the picture, so.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Welcome, sir.
My name is Chester DeYoung. I live at 4908 East Grant Street, which is the house to the very east edge of this development. I have a metal roof on that house. It is not what we're proposing to put on the north sides of these buildings, but it does totally meet residential requirements for a steel roof on a house. Okay, obviously I'm for this development. I'm not going to say any more than that on that, but I do have a letter from the neighbor that lives at the corner of Grant and Detroit. I got this letter just this morning at 7 o'clock, and it is from Bill Burke and Elizabeth Archer, who own that property. Okay, they've owned it for about 1.5 years now, and I've had several conversations with them. I'll summarize the letter. If you'd like to see it, it's here for you. It says, at this point, we do not have any problems with the DeYoung family plans to expand their storage facilities, but we would be heartbroken if Grant Street was paved and turned into a through street, connecting it to the areas east of our home. Please consider not allowing Grant Street to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors? Yes, Councilor Neitzer?
I do have a few questions, and while I'm doing that, if Jim could, he's going to pull up a few pictures for me. I'm going to make you look at a few more pictures. Could you tell me the property to, there's a house, I think, in the commercial, Jason, there's a house, I'm sorry, I'm bringing up these pictures in the same time, so I'm doing two things at once, but you may know what I'm talking about. There's a single-family house zoned in that C2.
Yep, that is.
Do you know how that happened? What's that?
It just got converted as part of Shea Places. It was Zone C2 under the old ordinance also. That is, the two DeYoungs that spoke, that is their father's home. So that's why it's.
Okay, it's the father's home.
Yeah, I think the future use for that whole area was going to be more commercial storage units.
Okay.
So yeah, it is the DeYoung's father's home, yep.
Okay. To be clear, though, there's a single-family home there. When we go back, I can point that out, I guess.
That fronts Detroit.
Yeah, yep. And I'll see if he brings up those pictures. And while we're waiting, the building shingles and the stuff they talked about to go on the last north buildings, was that something that was not something that you could stipulate in the buffer yard regulations, right? Because it's not in the buffer yard?
I would say that's something we can't stipulate in the buffer yard. However, Mr. DeYoung was more than willing to look into either the asphalt style shingles, or I believe the Buckmillers brought up possibly doing residential style metal shingles, but the shingle looking, and they seem to be okay with either one of those two options.
Okay. And now, if you could just scroll through those, I'll just comment as we go through. So this is just as you're turning onto Grant Street. Some of these rezones just scream for needing a site visit. They just, you can see more when you go out to the site. And there's some of these existing trees, and when we go through. So there's the storage buildings. You can judge how close they are, whether you think it's close enough or not. I'll just let them scroll through there. So I'm standing essentially in front of the Buckmiller's home, and the home that's just, so I'm standing on Grant Street here, and then I take a shot. Okay, so there's a Buckmiller's house back there, and there's the home that's right there that was represented by the folks back there. So, and this is Grant Street, obviously. Thanks. I just kind of wanted to just let everybody kind of have a sense of that. So can I ask Jeff, the existing chain link fence, what your plans were with that, and whether you'd be willing to remove that if some other fence went in? The one along Grant Street.
The one along Grant Street?
Yeah.
I guess the reason I planned on leaving that 4-foot fence alone. Basically, it just keeps the trash from blowing into the trees and stuff like that. If at that point in time that does happen, it keeps people from walking through them in there. It's still a separation point to it so that we don't get unwanted visitors or guests coming through there or the trash coming into it. The 6-foot fence, what I'm looking at in the back side of it, on the inside of the buffer zone, basically I'm going at 28 to 29 feet off the property line. To put that in at that point, that's almost looking at a wooden fence in there. I know, the cost of chain link fence as compared to wood fence, there's a big difference. Wood fence, you don't get the long life out of it. Still willing to do the wooden one. Talking to the fencing contractor today, they kind of shied me away from vinyl. They said they had a lot of calls over the Christmas holidays from people that had their vinyl fence blow down. And I don't want that for our facility. It kind of creates a bad look in the long run when the fence blows down. The wooden fence is supposed to have a longevity of roughly 15 years to it in there. But yeah, I guess originally the 4-foot fence I planned on leaving alone as a separation point to it. If something had to get done with it, I suppose I could change it out. But ideally, like I said, it keeps unwanted visitors out.
Okay, that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Councilor Eiter, thank you. Councilor Stanley?
First of all, for the Buckmillers, if you would come back up, Jesse, please. Would you tell us what you pay for property taxes at your home?
You better talk to my wife.
Okay.
Wrong person.
Okay.
Buckmiller family, would you mind staying up here in the front? And the Young family, would you mind coming up to the front as well? Thank you. Ms. Buckmiller, there's a question in terms of, do you know what you pay for your taxes?
I know the realtor told us we pay the same levy tax as everybody else in the city of Sioux Falls, and our taxes are between $3,600 and $3,700.
Well, and I'm asking about that because as I drove out there and looked to the north and the surrounding area, it's a very nice residential area that they live in. So we're talking about, the south end becoming this commercial zone if we pass this. And the second thing I wanted to ask was for the shed man here.
Mr. DeYoung.
Yeah, Mr. DeYoung.
That's true today.
And this is also with Jason, we've got some moving parts here, but something that is concerning to me is that they don't have any assurances that you would build those north end sheds first. And to me, that would make sense, that if this aesthetically they're going to look like residential garages, and that's part of the buffer area, and it's also part of a negotiational thing, that those would be put in first. And I don't know what we'd need to do if you would concede to do that, then how that goes about getting so that it's mandated.
I guess for the original plans here, basically, if we go from the existing blacktop to a building in there, that makes more sense. If I put the north buildings in first, I have to put blacktop down to get to these north buildings. Now that needs to come back out again in order for me to do the south buildings.
I understand, but if it would be doing that or doing nothing.
Yeah, and as well as the southern buildings have the security cameras on them. That's one of the big reasons for the southern buildings, And, I'm not saying I'm totally against the idea of putting some north buildings in and maybe not build all the south ones at one time and possibly do a south one, a north one, a south one, a north one to it. It's just the timing issues to it in there. I understand, that, okay, it's all up there, but now I've got to blacktop a lot more land in order to get back to it, because that's one of the city requirements. I have to have hard surfacing in front of the units. I can't just have gravel in like some of the units do around that are grandfathered in to it. But that's, it's the security cameras basically for the south buildings. The first one that would go in would be the second one from the left, and there is where I'd need to run my security camera system to in order to cover the area. And then from that point, one of the city members made a good comment that I should start on the east end and work my way west. But the downfall of that is a security system to us to be able to cover the area with cameras to it. But like I said, I wouldn't be totally opposed to flip-flopping as I go through there. It's just the idea of the southern ones, they have the potential to pay for themselves quicker, so I can do the next building up in there too.
But like it was stated, there really wouldn't be any assurance that this thing, maybe if the economy drops out or something, that you wouldn't be, maybe you don't get to finish the north end.
And maybe I don't
And
finish
so
it.
then they really aren't given that part of it falls through then.
Well, but the buffer zone is still existing before any of this stuff starts. I mean, it is, you know, and that is the part required by the city in there. And I'm making the concessions on the other side of it, you know, for the privacy fence being something residential for wood, and then the shingles on the roof to it. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's just the idea. In the long run, if I went south to north, that would make more sense than to try and put all the ones on the south side, on the north side first, in there. At least from my standpoint, I understand your standpoints can be different to it.
So could Jason, I mean, if we were going to have that as a stipulation, then how does that look?
I'll probably defer to Dave, but I don't know if we can make that as a stipulation of this rezoning, which building he's going to build first. One thing to think about, though, is if he does build those south buildings first, you still got that additional, then it's 28 feet between the buildings and then 22 feet for those north buildings plus 5 or so feet on the back side. So you're increasing that buffer by 55 feet if they don't build those north ones first. And plus that buffer, or that other 55 feet does have all those existing evergreen trees in. So those will stay until they construct them north buildings. So it'll go from 30 feet from Grant to the first building to 85 feet from Grant for the first buildings. So that's something to think about.
Councilor Saley, Dave did shake his head that you could not stipulate that. Is it fair, David? Please, please do. I prefer it.
Rather than referring to, thank you, Mayor, before referring to any specific condition, I think the conditions that were where the applicant was given prior notice that those would be possible conditions, I think you could add those tonight. From my understanding, the sequence of building north first, et cetera, I'm not sure if that was fully shared with the applicant, so I would be concerned about the council adding that as a condition tonight, rather than remanding it back to the Planning Commission, or at least deferring the second reading, continuing this.
Councilor Muck?
Just one question, Jason. This proposed agreement for concessions, would that guarantee that those trees would stay in perpetuity? One tree dies, they take it out, do they have to replace it? Or remind us how that works over time.
If they would go back to Planning Commission like we're suggesting and the applicant has agreed upon for the alternative landscape plan, if one of those trees would happen to die, they would have to replace it then with at least a 6-foot evergreen tree. It would be approved as presented at the Planning Commission, and that would be what would be approved then on his final plan and what would be required going forward from this day till whenever, I guess.
Thank you.
Council Chair?
Jason, are you suggesting that we send this back to the Planning Commission then so they can formalize the changes or the additions to this agreement so that they can work that out and then come back to us for another second reading?
I'm not suggesting remanding it back to the Planning Commission. I think Dave made a good suggestion that you could put those stipulations on because we shared those with the applicant. What it was more of is the applicant agreeing to go to Planning Commission on February 1st for the alternative site plan, and he's been okay with that. He thinks that's a good plan to be able to give some of the Buckmillers some kind of security that this is what it's going to look like. We feel remanded it back, just going to start the process all over again, and
okay.
That's our suggestion.
Could we do a CUP on it?
You cannot do a conditional use on this. No.
Okay.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. Can you put up the other map of where it shows C2 and all of that? The actual zoning purposes?
Around the general area or the whole,
You had it up earlier.
talking about this one?
Of the actual land.
I have this.
I thought it overlaid over the top up there. No?
This is the last, this shows the zoning of the entire, this area of Arrowhead Parkway.
Okay, so it's already, C2 is right next door. So what is stopping them other than, I believe Jeff's father's house is in a C2 area, which was transferred over. What's stopping them from putting it in his backyard, putting it straight across the way? Technically, they could do that already, right?
They could construct storage units to the west, yes, it's zoned for that.
Already?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, just seeing that that's already zoned, that would be a pretty simple, just carry it over there. That way, if they chose to do that, they would not have to go through any additional permitting. They would not have to get any neighborhood meetings. They wouldn't have to do any of that. Is that correct?
They would have to get the building permits and different things like that,
That's-
yes.
that's
but
the only thing.
Not any approvals through planning commission or city council, that is correct.
Right. So they could go ahead and build them in that area if they so choose. The other thing is, as Councilor Ruffling was talking about, remanding it back or not or what, my fear, it's not that I don't trust people from doing it or not, but we're doing it simply on a handshake, and I'm not necessarily okay with that. I would rather have that in place and figured out prior to us giving the stamp of approval, because today we could say, okay, now you have to go back, but technically it's just really a suggestion, because once they get it zoned, they can do kind of whatever they want to do. That's my concern with it. I'm just sharing with council, so I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Councilor Conley.
Thank you. I've looked at this every way that I possibly can, and I've looked at, okay, if we do put stipulations on and it's agreeable to everybody, or at least to Mr. DeYoung, but it still comes down to what I think is appropriate buffer between the C2 and residential area. And it comes down to the RD1 and the twin home buffer seems to be much more appropriate than a 30-foot buffer, even if you have trees or a vinyl fence in this situation. And I'm assuming that this has been zoned this way. Can you tell me how long this zoning has existed?
I couldn't find exactly when it was zoned this way, but it's predates Shape Places, so it was sometime between 1983 and this, and maybe the applicant knows a little bit more about the history of when this was, because I believe they've always owned it, but I couldn't find the rezoning for this specific area. So,
what I guess I'm saying at this point, at this particular point in time, I will say that I oppose this rezone, and I oppose sending it back to the Planning Commission as well.
Council Vice Chair, would you want to make a motion to approve this item?
So, yes.
Thank you.
Second, Urban
There's been a motion to approve this item. It has been seconded.
I would like to, excuse me.
Oh, yes, sir.
I would like to offer some, can we do amendments, or do we do additions or stipulations? How do we do that, Dave? Amendment? I'd like to make an amendment that that's one of the reasons I think we need to kind of send this back and have them work out so that they agree with this kind of thing. But I've been looking at this, and I see that there's some agreement as to whether or not we should have, if the berm is there and the trees are there, and if there's if the north part of that is wood looking and the shingles are there, that everybody's a little bit better off with it. But trying to put that into amendment is really quite difficult. So I'm looking for help here.
David,
anybody?
David, if they voted no, it goes back to the drawing board.
No, then they've got. Do they have to? they have to wait 6 months on it? Yes, then they have to wait 6 months on it.
Very good. Council Chair, you don't have your amendment ready, so I'm going to go to Councilor Selberg. Councilor Selberg?
Thank you. I guess I'm on the same boat. I would think that if this can be put down on paper and there's agreement between parties to work it out, then I would think there's a few of us that would be on board there, but I'm not sure I understand if that's possible. Am I missing something? Is that what we're trying to figure out? That's where I'm at.
Jason, could you offer some advice, please?
Sure. I think those three things I indicated, the 6-foot residential privacy fence, the residential shingles, and then the buffer yard is something that the Buck Millers seem to want with this specific case. The feeling that I'm getting is I don't think I think they'd still oppose it because we agreed to that on Friday. I don't want to speak for them, but with those three things, the applicants agreed to do them. It sounds like Dave said that we could add them to this specific rezoning tonight because we've shared them with the applicant. I just think if you remand it back to the Planning Commission, I know the Buck Millers want to get an answer tonight. I think the applicants want to get an answer tonight. I don't know if prolonging this out another 2 months is something that either one of them wants, I guess.
Okay. I have my amendment ready then.
Before I go back to Council Chair Rolfing, any other comments? Councilor Starr?
Yes, absolutely. We haven't talked to engineering, so we might as well throw one more person into this. I know Chad's here, so I've got a couple of questions if you don't mind. A big part of this is this street either going through or not going through at some point as this area develops. And I'm trying to look at the whole picture of what we're trying to do in this area. And next to Mr. DeYoung's or Chester DeYoung's home is already zoned for multifamily housing. Is Grant Street, is there enough right-of-way now to handle the traffic load that it would take if that street was completed? Because now we're going to be running, if that develops into multifamily housing, we're going to add a considerable amount of people, and whether there's townhomes or twin homes as part of this, what the applicant, if that was the other choice in this matter, is there going to be enough space and enough, does it make sense to finish that road?
Chad Hebe with engineering. You are correct that east of here, I mean, there's utilities in, it's ready to be developed. Now, there is 66 feet of right-of-way there today, which would be what would accommodate what would be needed here. We're not talking, this would not be a Bonson Avenue type road. I mean, I would think most of the traffic, if multifamily is built there to the east, most of that's going to go to the east and not to the west. But that's not to say it couldn't. But today there's 66 feet of right-of-way. There's ample right-of-way there to build a city urban residential street.
Okay. That's going to add considerably to the traffic load in that area, and that is concerning me, but there's no other way for them to get we just passed the having to have a second access as part of developing that area, correct?
Yeah, if that property to the west would come in for redevelopment.
Actually.
Or development, to the east, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'll make sure.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something we'd have to work through at that time is that Grant Street connection.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I would like to propose an amendment with a little clarification I could first, that there be, what is the, Jason, what is the proper nomenclature, if you will, for the buffer yard? Is that specific? Is it like S2 or?
Your condition for the buffer yard is you'd want to make a condition that they get an alternative site plan approved by the Planning Commission, and that would approve their buffer yard as presented here tonight or as presented to the Planning Commission, and that would bind them to construct their buffer yard as approved by the Planning Commission for that specific one.
I would move that we do that they get approved the alternate site plan that was presented today, that there be a residential shingles on the north buildings, and that a buffer yard, an adequate buffer yard be, or that's part of the, that would be part of it. So it would be just the alternative site plan and residential shingles on the north buildings.
I think they also agreed upon a 6-foot residential style fence.
And a
was another
6-foot
one of
residential style fence. I'd love a second if somebody, so we could discuss.
That has died for lack of a second. Councilors, we've got a motion to approve this particular item. It's a second reading. We've been talking about it for a long time. If I hear no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
No.
Erickson?
No.
Erpenbach?
No.
Kylie?
No.
Neitzert?
No.
Rolfing?
No.
Selberg?
No.
That has failed 1-7. Item 26.
Item 26 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending 157.115 of the...
That failed 1-7. My apologies. Did I say 1-7 or 1-6?
You said 7.
1-7.
Thank you. Keep it going.
Amending 157.115 of the Code of Ordinances of the City pertaining to minimum subdivision improvements. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
Good evening, Chad Hebe with Engineering. This proposed ordinance is in regards to street access in residential developments and is not related to secondary access for emergency vehicles. Under this ordinance, residential developments served by one access would need to provide a second access prior to reaching a traffic volume of 980 vehicles per day on the main access. The second access would be a minimum 24 feet wide, gravel surfaced with dust control or hard surfaced. This ordinance is supported by the Home Builders Association of the Sioux Empire and the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Chad. Second reading, folks. Anybody want to engage the council on this? Councilors.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve this second reading, seconded by Councilor Chair Rolfing. Yes, Councilor Neiser.
This goes back to before I was on the council, so I don't remember all of this, I don't think. But the second access, the 24 feet wide gravel surface or hard surface. So why wouldn't it be just required to be hard surfaced? And it might be a dumb question. I just don't remember the history of this.
I think a lot depends on where the road would be. There's a road just like this today that was built this past summer. It functions very well. They do dust control on it. It's extremely hard. It carries truck traffic. And when there has been dust issues, it has been dust controlled. Now it is a cheaper alternative. They can turn around and reuse that gravel versus putting pavement down. So in the one case where we've used this, it's been used more for construction traffic than anything else. And so I think if circumstances were different, per the ordinance, the Director of Planning and myself would have the authority to maybe require this to be a paved road if we felt that was the best situation for the particular development.
So in many cases, a paved road might be what the existing homeowners are using, and the gravel is what the construction trucks are using, so they're not going up and down
right.
their residence.
And you know, in this one instance we had, the contractor just parked a motor grader out there for the summer, and if it needed to be bladed, they were always there to do that. And it was the same with dust control. So in that case, when you're building a subdivision like that, having that type of equipment there and doing those types of activities are pretty routine. So, and like I said, if we had a different condition, a different situation, we could require it to be hard surfaced.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Councilors, that is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 27.
Item 27 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 157, Subdivisions, and Appendix C of Chapter 157, Subdivision Construction Agreement. Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
In January of 2013, we implemented the subdivision construction agreement, which is a contract entered into by the developer and the City of Sioux Falls, by which the developer warrants and promises to complete the required public improvements in a subdivision within a specified time period. The proposed revision is to change the word developer to responsible party, and the responsible party could be the landowner, could be the developer, or it could be another party taking responsibility to complete the improvements. This change will add more flexibility in the use of the agreement. Again, this was approved by the Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, and I will answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Chad. Anybody want to discuss this item with the council? Council Chair Rolfing?
Chad, was there any negative discussion on this by the IRAB or anybody?
No, and really the driver of the change has to do with, I'll say, tax laws and different things like that, how different entities are classified. And so this does offer, it just offers flexibility as to whether I'm called the developer or whether I'm called the landowner or whether I'm a responsible party. So we're just adding flexibility for the people that want to use this to use it.
Could be 2 or 3 people then instead of 1.
It could be. They would form some kind of a partnership. And I will say that since 2013, we have entered into 200 of these as the city develops and public infrastructure is built.
Councilor Neisert?
So this is a very minor change, but since we're talking about subdivision construction agreements, if we go back to what we talked about before, where then you had a Taylor Street, I think it was, and that you had streets vacated. If that sort of thing were to happen today, would this cover it, where there would be a bond where if streets were vacated and a developer didn't put in that cul-de-sac, that the city could execute the bond and take care of that, or not? Or is that covered?
If what happened back in 2004 would be presented today, we would say we're going to wait till we have this done. Once this agreement is executed, then we'll come here and vacate the streets.
You just change the order.
We would change the order.
Okay, thank you.
But, it was a different time.
Yep, understood.
Councilors, second reading. Would anybody want to approve this ordinance?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor. And seconded by, my apologies, who was that?
Second.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want to second it, Councilor Erickson? All right. Who said it first?
Selberg.
Councilor Selberg. Thank you, Councilor Selberg. It was first. Councilor Erickson was second. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Councilors, that is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 28, please.
Item 28 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, January 10th, 2017 at 7 p.m. First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances by adding Chapter 55, Privately Owned Best Management Practices.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lance Weatherly with Engineering. What we are proposing is an ordinance regarding the operations and maintenance of privately owned best management practices, more generally referred to as BMPs. The proposed ordinance is a continuation of the city's efforts to improve water quality in the Big Sioux River watershed basin. We want to be proactive about water quality. And Jim, if you go to the up 2 slides. I'll go. What a BMP essentially is an engineered facility with the primary to primarily treat stormwater prior to being discharged. They are essentially our treatment plant for the city for stormwater. There are different types of BMPs. There's private and public BMPs. Generally, public BMPs are larger in size. Private BMPs are placed in locations where a public BMP is not available, or the water does not, a redevelopment would be like in the core of the city. The proposed ordinance was presented to IRAB twice, received formal support, and was also presented to the Home Builders Association. Why is a privately owned BMP ordinance needed? In essence, privately owned BMPs have been required for 10 plus years. Some are exhibiting signs of necessary maintenance. The city recently underwent an EPA audit, and in the EPA's results, they noted that the city did not have a formal ordinance and recommended that the city adopt the proposed ordinance in front of you. Okay. As with any change, we looked at our peer communities. We reviewed these communities adjacent to Sioux Falls with their BMP ordinances. We also looked at our existing pretreatment ordinance and took a lot of that language from that. As said, with any change, we had some public outreach. We brought it to IRAB actually twice. The first time they asked for some additional time for their members to consider it, and brought it back a second time, and it was formally supported. The proposed regulations would essentially require the proper operation and maintenance of privately owned BMPs. In essence, it's similar to a restaurant having a grease trap and then being required to properly maintain and operate that. The picture in the background is a mechanicals BMP, and in essence what this ordinance would formally require property owner to do is clean that debris out in a timely manner. One section in this private BMP ordinance refers to right of entry for inspection and sampling. Most privately owned BMPs are in publicly accessible locations. However, some are behind fences and underground, and what this ordinance would propose to do is allow the city access for that. One note is when this ordinance was initially proposed to Land Use Committee, there was some suggested changes which we did adopt regarding formally adopting putting notice that would be advanced prior to inspections. Also, the final part of this ordinance refers to the enforcement of penalty. When we did present to Land Use Committee as well, there was some questions regarding any publicly NOVs. We did clarify that language with that initially they would receive a written statement, and if that violation was not identified in 90 days, it would be formally then adopted to a public notice of violation. And the ordinance does refer to our current code enforcement ordinance regarding penalty. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilors? Yes, Councilor Steele.
Just a question. When you said that they're going to be notified with a written statement, do you mail that to them?
We would mail that to the property owner address of record.
Violation?
Yes.
Okay, but we don't, so that's not a practice we do with other violations. Do we mail all violations, or aren't sometimes they hung on doorknobs?
Councilor Steele, are you asking Lance?
I'll ask Lance.
If there is a violation and on a storm drainage violation, it is mailed to the property owner address of record.
Thank you.
Councilor Mock?
Lance, how are these inspections going to happen? Are we adding people? Are you going to do them in rounds? You'll do a few a year, or what's your strategy?
There are currently around 300 privately owned BMPs. We are inspecting those now with our current staff, so we don't anticipate any additional FTE needs. This ordinance would just formally adopt the enforcement, the maintenance and operation component of that.
Good, thank you.
Council, would anybody want to set a second reading for Tuesday, January 10th for item number 28?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Councilor. And Council Vice Chair, thank you. And Councilor Bach, thank you as well. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That has been passed 8-0. Item 29, please.
Item 29 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, January 10th, 2017 at 7 p.m. First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city to provide for permit and inspection fees into one referenced location.
Good evening, Ron Bell, Building Services. What you have here is an ordinance that deals with exemption of fees for inspections. Over the years, this ordinance has included like Make-A-Wish, Home Builders Association, Southeastern Development, nonprofits, and so forth. In addition to that, within the executive orders, there is also provisions for what we do with city buildings, state buildings, and federal buildings. All this does is just put it into one place in the ordinance form, so we don't have to look at both an executive order and into ordinance for exemption of fees.
Ron, thank you. Councilors, would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, January 10th for this particular item?
So moved.
Thank you, Council Vice Chair. Appreciate that. And Councilor Chair, thank you for the second. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Item 30, please.
Item 30 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, January 10th, 2017 at 7 p.m. First reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by relocating the plumbing provisions from Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapter 121, Plumbing, to Title 15, Land Usage, Chapter 150, Building of the Code of Ordinances of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and adopting the 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code and amendments thereto.
Thank you. This proposes the adoption of the 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code. Basically, what we're doing is that we're following the lead of the South Dakota State Plumbing Commission. South Dakota State Plumbing Commission adopts the uniform, not the international plumbing code, and not every 3 years like we do with all of our building codes. It's every 6 years. So we went from the 2009 to the 2015. The South Dakota Plumbing Commission has made this effective I believe around December. So what we've had to do is we've had to take their ordinance, their changes, put it into ordinance form, and incorporate local changes into that with the adoption. You need to know also that our plumbing inspectors do a whole lot more inspection than what the state does. For instance, the state exempts water heaters, fuel gas piping, healthcare facilities, and so forth. So we're also adopting those things that we actually inspect for on a daily basis. You have a list of about less than a dozen local amendments to the code that was discussed at the Plumbing Board of Appeals. Every one of those got approval. And the last thing is that we're finally taking the plumbing code out of the business regulations and putting them into Chapter 150, which now will have all of the codes into one location under land usage. Plumbing Board, like I say, the Plumbing Board approved it and is hoping to get a second reading for adoption.
Ron, thank you. Appreciate that. Councilors?
Move to set the date to January 10th
Second.
for second reading.
Councilor Erickson's making that motion to set the date of hearing for January 10th, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thanks, Council. Item 31, please.
Item 31 is deferred from the City Council meeting on December 6, 2016. A resolution of intent to extend the boundaries of the City of Sioux Falls.
Jason Bieber again with Planning and Building Services. Staff is requesting to withdraw this item at this time. Just a side note, next Tuesday at the Land Use Committee, the City Annexation team will be presenting a presentation to the City Council Land Use Committee. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Councilor Vice Chair?
A motion to withdraw this item.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Erickson. It's been a motion to withdraw this item. It has been seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 32.
Item 32 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Hidden Valley Stables Addition.
This is the preliminary subdivision plan that went with item number 20, the rezoning tonight. This is the Norm Drake Houston Hago property. They're looking at constructing a multifamily office and commercial development here at 57th and just over Interstate I-229.
Jason, thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who want to speak to this item? Councilors? Yes, Councilor Nitzert.
Just out of curiosity, where is the access for all three of these? Is it one common, one off of 57th there? Or?
Let me see if it's on here. There will be one common access off of 57th Street, and then there'll be either a private road or an access easement that would go all the way running along that north side of the property all the way back to access all three lots.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, thank you.
Move to
I'll
approve,
move.
Erickson.
Thank you, Councilor Erickson. Thank you, Councilor Nitzert. For the second, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson, Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 33.
Item 32, or item 30, item 33 is a report of the December 23rd, 2016 Notice of Transfer of Appropriations within Major Organizational Units.
Thank you. Item 34.
Item 34 is a motion to provide advice and consent for the appointment of Jody Fick as Director of Siouxland Libraries.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Bill O'Toole, Human Resources Director for the City of Sioux Falls. As this council knows, whenever the mayor makes an appointment for a department head, city charter requires advice and consent of the City Council. And today we're happy to be before you on the appointment of Jody Fick as the Director of Siouxland Libraries. Just some brief background. Our office conducted a national search this past fall, and we obtained 37 applications for the position. We utilized a search committee for that process, and that search committee comprised of Gene Beto, the Library Board of Directors trustee, Monique Christensen, the Senior Librarian, Carrie Deaver, the Minnehaha County Human Resources Director, Jane Hannestead from the City of Sioux Falls Human Resources Office, Wanda Harris, who was a citizen representative and a human resources professional, and Dick Kelly, the Minnehaha County Commissioner. And the committee's role was to identify the most qualified candidate and make a recommendation to the Library Board of Trustees, who in turn made a recommendation to the mayor. And as you know, the mayor interviewed Jody, made the decision to appoint her, and just some very brief background, and we'll be happy to bring Jody up for some questions. Jody was the only candidate recommended to the mayor, and she served as the Assistant Director since 2007. She served as the Assistant Director of Minnehaha County Rural Public Library from 1990 to 1995. When the Sioux Falls Public Library and the Minnehaha County Rural Public Library systems merged to become Siouxland Library, she assumed the role of Senior Librarian, supervising all the rural branches, bookmobiles, and outreach services. She was later promoted to Assistant Director for Technical Extension Services and led the department as Interim Library Director in 2011. Her areas of responsibility have included budget management and supervising the System Support Division, 8 rural library branches, and the bookmobile. She has a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Secondary Education from Augustana College and a Master of Science in Library and Information Management from Emporia State University. We urge your support for the advice and consent, and both myself and Jody are here to answer any questions you may have.
Jody, do you have any comments before I go to the council? You don't. If you could just come forward, though, please. Appreciate that. Councilors, any questions or comments for Jody or for Bill? Yes, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations, Jody. I think you're going to do a great job for us. The one question that I have is, could you elaborate on what you see happening? We're so much in our library system, so much more than just loaning books to people anymore. I see it in my neighborhood and across the city, the outreach that we do to the young people that are in the neighborhoods, the programming that goes with it, including providing snacks and after-school meals and things to get them through and tell their parents. So the library's become a place for young people to be and to be safe and to continue their learning day once they leave the school system. So trying to toss a softball up to you at least here.
Yeah, the libraries, libraries have been about books, have been about self-learning, and I think as we evolve with more internet and more access that people have directly into their homes, the library's role is changing to be one that emphasizes learning in an even bigger scale. The other thing that libraries are important for is looking at what are the needs of our community, and we've identified that in our Oakview branch area as one of the areas of town where we have a lot of kids who don't have parents at home at the end of the school day. And we were seeing at the end of each day dozens and dozens of children coming over to the library, and most of them hadn't had anything to eat since lunch. And their parents were working parents and didn't have, the kids were there until 7, 8 o'clock at night and did not have snacks. So our branch librarian over there connected with Feeding South Dakota, and Feeding South Dakota is now providing a snack that we now give to the kids. And we have over 100 children on average coming each day to get a snack and then to stay for library programs. So it's been a very successful partnership in that area, and we're here to fill the needs of our community.
Awesome.
And that's one we're doing there.
Thank you.
Councilors, would anybody want to make a motion to provide advice and consent to have Jody Fick be our new director of Siouxland Libraries?
So moved, Rolfing.
Council Chair Rolfing has made that recommendation, and that was seconded by Council Vice Chair Kiley. If there's no discussion, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
That has been unanimously approved by the City Council, 8-0. On behalf of the citizens of Sioux Falls, Jody Fick, congratulations. And Jody, who is the young man with you?
This is my husband, Tom. Drove over. We actually...
Thank you.
We actually don't live in Sioux Falls. We live in Minnesota. So my husband took the long, cold drive this evening to be here. But even though we don't live in South Dakota, in Sioux Falls, this is my home. This is so dear to me. I've commuted over into this community for nearly 30 years here, and this is my home. So I hope to continue to make this library be a very important part for both the citizens in Sioux Falls and for all of Minnehaha County. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome to the team, everybody. Thank you so much. Bill, any final comments? You're done as well. Thank you. Councilors, you've been here a long time today. Would there be a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Councilor Box made that motion, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Councilor Vice Chair Kiley. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned, Sioux Falls. Make it a great, great night and a great new year.